Hello, everybody. This is Mark Kumar, your lifestyle entrepreneur, and we are here today with Scott, who is going to be helping you out about podcasting. He's going to be sharing some amazing tips and his journey as becoming a podcaster. So, before we get to that part, and I just want to say this is sponsored by Simple Podcast Cloud. If you're in the market for looking for a podcast host, do check us out by going to simplepodcastcloud.com, and there you will find a 14-day free trial with no credit card ads. You can do whatever you want with that and take full advantage of our platform. So Scott, please take your time to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Thanks for having me on the show, Mark. I really appreciate it.
All right.
So, I work at ClickFunnels, and on the side, I also have 2 podcasts, and I also build funnels for clients. So, sort of pretty busy juggling those 3 activities. I've sort of got the red eyes happening a bit at the moment, bit tired, but it's all good. It's better to be busy than not to be busy. So, I'll go on. Sorry. Yep.
I was gonna say definitely is a good thing to be busy and not to be busy. You don't want to be bored at home and they'd be like, oh crap, can't wait until 9 o'clock comes and I can do something else, because the time literally slows down when you have nothing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to keep busy. So with the podcasting, I first started it about 6 or 7 years ago, but it didn't last long. I think I did about 5 or 6 episodes. I think the name of that podcast was Low Cost Marketing, but I didn't really have a clear idea of why I was doing the podcast and exactly have a long-term vision of it. So I ended up sort of giving up after about 5 or 6 episodes. But then fast forward to the very beginning of this year, or the very ending of last year, I sort of made the decision or the commitment to do 2 podcast episodes every week and launch a podcast called Funnel Fella Radio, which is obviously about funnels. And working at ClickFunnels and building funnels, then I'm pretty well qualified to be talking about funnels. And I managed to launch it and to stick with it. And so far we're in, the first week of September. I'm up to about episode number 70. And I've been able to stick to that schedule. And initially I was just sort of talking. I just had a topic and I'd talk about it. The first few episodes, as you'd expect, weren't particularly great. But as I got into it, I got better and better, and then I started interviewing people such as Mark. Mark's been on my podcast as well a few weeks ago, and the interviews have become really interesting, and it sort of inspired me to start up a second podcast, which is called SaaS Startup Stories, which was the podcast that Mark was actually on. So I'm sort of doing the 2 podcasts together, and I've found that podcasting for me is a excellent way to meet people, to get your name out there, to generate leads, and just basically to enjoy yourself. So that's sort of my story for podcasting so far.
And I must say, first of all, congratulations on finishing your 70 podcast episode. Good for you, man. That's awesome. And that is a really good story. And I'm so glad to hear, at least when you said when you first started, your first couple episodes were great, which is truly not the case for most people. At least for me, the first case was like when I first started and when I recorded my episode and listened to my own voice, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. So I'm really, really glad. I was really, really glad to hear you felt like your was great and it was great. So can you walk me through like when you recorded your first podcast, and before you even recorded the first podcast, right? What was some of the things that you were like, oh my God, I need to get this, I need to get this, I need to have this, and blah, 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 blah. So what was your to-do list at the time before you recorded your first podcast?
Yeah, well, right in the very beginning, the main thing for me was just to keep doing them. So I didn't really plan out the episodes to a high degree, but obviously I had to set things up, such as getting the intro and the outro recorded. So I got someone from Fiverr to do that. The logo, which I've since changed. The original logo it looked like a 5-year-old had sort of put it together, but I've upgraded the logos. And then, of course, the other thing is the podcast hosting service as well. So unfortunately, I wasn't aware of Simple Podcast Cloud at the time, so I signed up with Libsyn. And because I've got 2 podcasts now, they're charging me for both of them. So, and as Mark mentions as well, there's a limit on the amount of bandwidth. So unfortunately, I wasn't aware of Mark's company back then, but I signed up with them, and yeah, I think that's pretty much all. Those were the 3 main things: the intro, the outro, also the logo, and then the hosting service. And then, of course, you've got to actually start recording the episodes. So I was just using Zoom to record myself talking. I didn't have any virtual background back then. It's pretty horrible background, actually. It's pretty embarrassing looking back on it. But listening to other people's stories, it's best to just keep your original episodes, even whether they're good or not, and just to keep going, because otherwise you lose the beginning part of the story. So even though, it was pretty amateurish in the beginning, I've managed to improve over time. I still want to get a better microphone and a better webcam as well. They're 2 things. I've actually invested in a microphone recently from Amazon, because at the moment I'm just using these headphones, and I know the sound is a little bit crackly and it's not brilliant, but the main thing for me initially, like the point I'm trying to get across, was I just wanted to get the episodes done. They weren't going to be perfect, but the most important thing was to get them done and to do 2 a week. Yeah.
Oh, you wanted to do 2 a week in the beginning? That's pretty brave. Most people are like, I just want to do 1 and that's it. We're good with that. Like when I first started, it was like 1 a week, and that particular episode itself took a lot out of me. So, what was your framework when you were like, okay, you did, like, say for example, you did your first 5 episode. However you did it, you had a blast. It seems like you did, because you were like went right through it, which is great. So, what happens after your 5th episode? Did you have a structure that you follow, or did that structure change where you are now? I'm assuming it might have, because as you and I both know, it changes every time.
Yeah, for me, probably the first 20 episodes were just me coming up with a topic. And to be honest with you, I was sort of like writing out notes and then almost reading them from the screen, which isn't the most professional way of doing it. But, I knew that I was going to struggle unless I had something to refer to.
Right.
I was going to get lost. So that for about the first 20 episodes, that was sort of how I was getting through it. And there was a few times where I had to stop the recording and start again. It was getting a little bit frustrating, but I got through that stage, and then I realised that, well, all right, so I got 20 episodes now. People will start to take me a little bit more seriously, and I can start trying to get people onto the show to interview, because that was the initial idea anyway. I wanted to interview people rather than just, talk myself. So I started then approaching people for interviews, and I've got a few decent names. Obviously, not everybody says yes, but you got to get out there and ask, and work out the best sort of system or the most efficient system for contacting people, and then, getting them interested in the show and giving them a reason why they should be on there, what's in it for them. And yeah, it's just sort of morphed from there. And now I only do interviews. I don't do any where I'm talking myself, because I think that for me it's a better episode if I'm actually interviewing somebody else and asking them questions. Yeah.
Oh, it definitely helps out for my personal opinion, that it helps out in terms of, it works twofold. One, you get to interview somebody else, help them out, grow their personal brand or whatever they're trying to promote. Number two, you get to learn another thing from another human being that you probably may not have known. And then, like I said, it only takes one idea to take yourself to the next idea. I mean, next level, not another idea. But, like, it's food for thought. What I always say is like when you eat, you feed your body, and ideas are food for your brain. So if you have a brand new idea, it's like, holy cow! Like when I first created this Simple Podcast Cloud, I have an idea, and then it's like, oh, that's a really good idea, and it's literally filled my own a need, and now we have a company that's doing pretty well. So yeah, definitely, new ideas are always. That's why I personally love interviewing other individuals. So like I get to learn like so many different things. So throughout your interviewing people and your podcast journey, has there been any interview that sticks out the most that you felt like you learned so much that you didn't know before?
Yeah, there's probably one I did with Brian Kurtz, who is a well-known marketing expert. Like he's been in marketing for about 40 years or something. That interview went for about 50 minutes. Like that's the longest one I've ever done. Because he's a big name and he's a busy guy, then I'm surprised he actually went on for that long. But he went into a lot of detail with his answers. And we talked a lot about a guy called Eugene Schwartz, who is one of the best copywriters of all time. He's passed away now, unfortunately, but Brian actually knew him personally, and I was able to ask him questions, about Eugene, personal questions, because he actually, they were friends. He used to go around to his house, and for me, that was just fascinating, sort of, for just your average 46-year-old guy living in Perth, Australia, who's a marketing freak, being able to talk to Brian Kurtz about Eugene Schwartz. It was, I don't know, it was sort of like, it felt like a celebrity sort of thing, and it was just fascinating. So, that was probably, out of all the episodes I've done, the one that I enjoyed and got the most value out of from a personal point of view. Yeah.
So when you enjoy the most, what kind of a questions, like for example, obviously when you have friends, when you're hanging out with your friends, there's so many different things that come across, and then some of the things you're like, oh my God, I wasn't even thinking about that. So has there been a situation where you were interviewing somebody and you were enjoying it so much? Obviously, that was one example where you asked some question that was like, wow, I didn't even think about those questions before. Not really.
Let me have a think about that. There's nothing actually that comes to my mind right off the top of my head. I'd probably have to have a think about that before we got together.
No, that's like that's why I love this kind of formatting, because when I go to for people's interview, I literally before I start, I like ask me the most challenging question you can think of,
Yeah,
because
you did.
I love
That's true.
I absolutely love it because that makes me think on my foot now. And then also when there's somebody asks me, I don't know, like I have to think creatively and think like, wow, how can I answer that question best to my knowledge based on my experience? So that's just me personally, right? So everybody's obviously
Well,
different. So
there is one question that I ask on every episode, and that's what tools or what platforms you use for your business. And there's a lot of interesting things that come up there, like platforms that I've never heard of. Like you've introduced me to a few things I've never heard of before. And you go and check them out and you think, oh, okay, because, working at ClickFunnels and building funnels and all of that, you think that you'd pretty much know most of the stuff that's available out there. But having talked to all of these people, and seeing what they use in their business, there's a lot of stuff out there that I had no idea about, and like for example, some of the stuff that you've introduced me to as well has been really interesting.
yeah, that definitely, man, definitely. So what happens after you record your interview or your podcast? How much post production do you do, or if
Yeah,
any?
that's a good question, because a lot of people are surprised when I tell them the answer to this. I like to pretty much just get it up and out there. I don't really do any editing at all. Like sometimes the intro, I have to edit out the beginning of it because it's a bit odd. But I don't really, try to take out parts where there's ums and ahs and where someone's made a mistake or anything. I find it's better just to keep it natural and real, because everybody makes mistakes, and you know, not only that also, but the time factor. I just simply haven't got the time. Even though I've got an assistant that's helping me to upload and sort of put everything together, I don't really bother too much with editing the podcast. But we do grab the YouTube video and pop the video and pop it up on YouTube, and then we've got the audio version as well, which ends up on the podcast. and then my assistant transcribes the podcast, and then we put that up on the blog. And there's actually that, which is related to it. There's actually something I got introduced to recently. There's a platform that's specifically for podcasters where it's not WordPress. It's specifically for podcasts, and it connects to your service such as Libsyn or Simple Podcast Cloud or whatever, and it pulls in all the information. And all you have to do is then add the transcripts to it. It's basically a content management system specifically for podcasting. I can't remember the name of it though. That's the only thing. Sorry, I might have to.
It's fine. So just not the specific the name, but just I'm just curious now. Like, what does it do for the podcasters? Can you talk?
Well, it's basically like a one-click thing where you click it, and then like within 10 seconds, it connects to your podcast and it pulls in all the episodes.
Okay. I think I know which one is. I have used it myself just to test while testing it out, because I always test out new things that are out there people are using. I'm just curious because I'm like so invested into this podcasting game. So I'm like, anything that comes out new, I'm like, I want to test this out. So I know exactly what you're talking about there. I think there's the free version of it and also the paid version of it. With the free version, I believe you can have one show and it will automatically transcribe, if I'm thinking about the same one, automatically transcribe all your podcasts that you upload into your show.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. I'm just trying to grab it now. Yeah. I can't actually. Oh, here we go. Let me just find it here.
Is it
podpage.com? Sorry, podpage.com.
Oh, I have not known that. The one that I was thinking was called the Audio Bust. It's called Audio Bust Creator. That's one that I was thinking about. That's also great.
Yeah. So now that I've given you the name, it makes a bit more sense. But yeah, podpage.com. So that I haven't actually used it yet, but you can try it out for free. So I think I'll give it a try, because I'm not really a great fan of WordPress, to be honest with you. But I mean, it's the only real content management system that I know how to use.
Oh, I had my set of troubles with WordPress in the past, but we won't go into it. Like, literally because of the problems or countless number of problems I had with WordPress got me into the web development, where I created my own content management system. It's called NodePress.js.com. It's literally, there was so many problems, because I'm sure you felt it as well, and anybody who uses WordPress, every single time there's a new damn update that they put it out, your site breaks. At least it did for me, like every time, like clockwork. It got to the point I'm like, I can't deal with this. I'm spending more time fixing this site up.
Yeah, if you got lots of plugins as well, then that creates problems too. So
yeah,
because the plugins can conflict with each other. But yeah, let's not go into the technical side of it. But yeah, it's a nightmare. Yeah,
it is definitely a nightmare. Yeah, so because of that, all that nightmare, I'm like, screw it. I'm just gonna build my own stuff. I literally taught myself and everything else. So I know how to do all that stuff. So I was like, okay, that's
okay.
Yeah. So
Cool.
All right. So you do much recording, which is great, because as long as you could keep it most of it raw, because like people like, I feel like raw conversations rather than polished, very professional. People like, I wouldn't listen to. Like, for example, if you were to like always, I don't know why, but I always try to go back to like having a conversation on podcast interviews, like hanging out with your friends and just having a good time. And if you go in there, let's say Friday night with your friends, and you say, hello, how are you doing? And you look around on sideways, and nobody wants to do that. That's what happens when you have like too polished of an interview.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So you uploaded your stuff, and then what happens in terms of marketing your episode or podcast show, for that matter? Do you do anything specific that, or just I'm not sure what do you do?
Yeah, I have an assistant that posts stuff on social media, which includes quotes and past episodes of the show, and a few other things as well. Plus, whenever I have an episode, I send the links to the person I've interviewed, and I ask them just say feel free to promote these links and share them with anyone you want. because it's good exposure not just for me but for them as well. And yeah, I mean, there's a couple of weeks last month I noticed looking at the stats where I was getting like 50 or 60 downloads a day for about 2 weeks, and I couldn't really work out why, because it's not usually that much. Not so far anyway. I mean, it takes a while for you to build up a podcast, but that was like a huge spike, and it lasted for 2 weeks. It wasn't like 1 or 2 days, but that must have been the only thing I can think of. Is it must have been from whoever I've interviewed, like promoting, or maybe more than one person promoting those links, and people are checking it out. That are on their list or followers of those people. So I probably could spend a bit more time on promoting them, but I'm just sort of so busy at the moment that it's hard to keep up to date with everything. So that's probably something I'll be more looking towards in the future. The whole purpose of doing these podcasts is really to build up an email list. That's what I want to be doing.
Okay. Yeah, but obviously, it seems like your metric, because everybody has a different metric that they want to hit. Some people like, hey, I want to increase the number of people who listen to me. Other people like, I don't care what to listen. I want to increase my my personal brand. Someone's like building your email list, and then so many different ones. Obviously, it seems like your main objective will be to build an email list, which I feel like it's a good thing to do, because once you have a group of people, then you can actually go and say, hey, by the way, I have my new podcast available. Send an email out to your list, rather than, going to a social media platform where you have to go, hey, invest the time in here, as compared to you go to your email marketing platform, you spend about 5 minutes. Let's say if you have 2,000 people at bare minimum, right? You just send it out, and all those people go check out your podcast, and it will also help you increase in your ranking as well. So yeah, definitely 100% agree with that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I am monitoring the downloads. I'm pretty keen to increase the number of downloads, because that's obviously a measure of how much interest there is in the podcast and how many people are actually listening to it. But I mean, I really would like to start monetizing both of the podcasts, with things like sponsorship and affiliate links as well, where you can be sending out emails and providing links to helpful and useful products that are going to help them, but also have my affiliate link on them as well, so that it sort of funds the show. Because eventually I'd like to be, rather than it costing me money, I'd like to actually be making money from the podcasts. So, but it's not all about the money, but that would help as well, because obviously you need money to eat. So yeah.
Absolutely. Like I always said, if your side business, let's just say, or side hustle, whatever you want to call it, if you're not making any form of money on it, it's just an expensive hobby that's gonna make you bankrupt.
That's right. Yeah.
Always have, and at the end of the day, like, have a goal that I'm gonna make X amount of dollars. Doesn't matter if you're just starting out or you've been doing for 10 years. Don't do that. Just have a goal that you're gonna make X amount of dollars out of it, because whatever time or the things you're purchasing, that's costing you money. So why not have some sort of ROI, return on your investments? Like, hey, if I put in $100 at the very beginning, I should at least make, if not $50, at least I'm only $50 loss. And then as I get better and better, then I'm gonna make a profit out of it. But don't just spend hundreds of dollars and like, okay, now I don't know what to do, and I have my pockets are getting pretty broke, and my credit card is like getting charged up and things like that. Just so definitely 100% with you. You should always have a plan to monetize whatever that you're doing.
Yeah, I think you've got to be realistic about it as well, though, because usually the podcast won't, like kick off for a bit. It takes about a year to build up a following and to be in the position to make money from it. In most cases, I mean, some people that are already big names can probably pull it off a bit earlier, but
right.
For me, I knew that I wasn't going to be making money from it, in the first 6 to 12 months. But once I've got over 100 episodes, and I'm getting good at it, and people I'm attracting good people to be on the show, and people are getting value out of it, then from there should be able to start to build it up, where I can have some sponsorship on the show, and start building that email list. So yeah, that's my goal eventually.
Well, I'm assuming when you say you're gonna build your email list, I'm assuming obviously you're gonna use ClickFunnels to build your email list, isn't it? Or is it another software you're gonna use?
Yeah, so I mean, because I'm working there, we get free accounts. So I'd be silly to use something else. Because I mean, we get the platinum account, so that's got all of the features in there. So yeah, definitely using that. I mean, that includes an email system as well. So um, yeah, so use ClickFunnels to send out the emails, and SendGrid is the actual
Yep.
SMTP service that sends the emails, but ClickFunnels is the interface where you put all the information in. So yeah.
Yep. I'm fully aware of the SendGrid. I use that for my own proprietary email marketing software that I have that like behind scenes, that's what it does. Like in terms of like my own email autoresponder and everything else built like talking about like a little software here because that's literally what I do is like build software that runs my business the way that I want it to. So yeah, SendGrid is by far 100% better than any other transactional email software out there. Definitely better than a Mailgun and a couple other ones. So yeah,
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, and it's not that expensive either.
not at all. You pay pennies on a dollar for the amount of emails that allow you to send is like
Yeah.
unreal.
Yep.
It's crazy. So all right, man.
Yep.
All right. So this part of the show, what I want to ask you are two questions, which is like whatever that you know right now, all the knowledge, all the experiences that you have had. If a 25-year-old version of asks you for advice to get to where you are right now faster, what advice would you give him?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, probably the first thing is that rather than sort of working hard and working a lot of hours, it's best to try to use as much leverage as possible. So, I mean, in my particular case, I would have preferred to have owned a business, a proper business a lot earlier on in life rather than just working a job because you're trading dollars for hours in that particular case, and it's pretty difficult to make a lot of money. So yeah, I mean, in investing, owning a business that actually functions without you having to put a lot of your own personal effort into it. They're the sort of things that I'd be focusing on. Also, becoming a good salesperson as well, because that's another good way to leverage your efforts where you're getting paid commissions on, say, something like high ticket sales. That's probably a few things that I would have liked to have got into, a lot earlier, rather than sort of just, working the job and being happy with that and sort of not aiming the bar a bit higher. So yeah, hopefully that sort of makes sense, but that's just a few things that I've noticed that, I've worked hard for all of these years, but I could have been doing things a lot smarter and getting other people to do the work for me. It's just a matter of knowing how to do that.
Okay, fair enough. And now, what is the thing that really excites you that you're working on, and what are your plans for that one thing in the future?
Well, at the moment, eventually I'm looking to actually own a SaaS company, which is the reason why I started up that SaaS Startup Stories podcast, to sort of see how other people have, got a SaaS business together. Because the last thing that I want to do is invest money and waste money, and that I'd like to have to learn from other people how they've managed to make it work. So yeah, I mean, for me, that's the end goal, to end up owning a SaaS company. And in the meantime, what I'm trying to do is generate leads for other SaaS companies as well and qualify them, and then get paid a commission by referring those leads to um, a, a funnel agency that actually will deliver the work for the SaaS company. So that's something at the moment that I'm focusing on. and sort of learning more about how SaaS companies work as well. So, by becoming like a salesman for SaaS companies and getting paid a commission, and also by doing this podcast at SaaS Startup Stories, as well as the other podcast as well, because that's the marketing side of it. Because funnels is that's what a SaaS company needs to use to actually sell the product. So between all of those sort of things, the end goal is to end up owning a SaaS company, and yeah, sort of investing in other SaaS companies as well. I'm not sure if you've heard of a guy called Nathan Latka.
I have not. Not.
Okay, because on his podcast, they actually asks a few of the similar questions to what you've asked me. But he basically invests in SaaS companies, and he wrote a book, How to Become a Capitalist Without Any Capital. And a lot of the stuff that's in that book has sort of inspired me to use his methods. So yeah, it's just interesting.
Smart guy.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's a smart guy, It's like, yeah, it's
Well,
like buying. Go ahead.
he's a lot younger than me, and he runs a podcast as well. And he has an episode one every day where he actually interviews SaaS companies as well. But he's talking more about the financial side of it, like venture capital and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's just interesting listening to his interviews, and a lot of the stuff that he does has inspired me as well.
That's good, man. I'm glad somebody inspired you because, I feel like if you are not learning, you're not inspiring. If you're not getting inspiring, then you're existing. If you're existing, then you're going to die pretty soon. Like not physically, but mentally, and then you will be so bored. It's like, oh my God.
You're just going through the motions. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Cool, man. All right, guys. So first of all, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. And can you let my audience know where can they find you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, first of all. I really appreciate it. So, yeah, if you wanted to email me, it's pretty straightforward. It's just scott@scottdudley.com. And, yeah, I've got my 2 podcasts. So, once again, you can see the URLs there in the background. So, for the SaaS Startup Stories, that's a new podcast. I've only done like a couple of episodes so far on that. So, www.saasstartupstories.com. And then the other podcast to do with funnels, Funnel Fella Radio. It's just funnelfellaradio.com. So, yeah, they're the best places.
Awesome, man. Hey, man, once again, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And, guys, all the links that he mentioned, I will put them in the show notes for you. So make it easier for you to go click on it, check him out. Gibbs got a guy. He's an amazing guy. Check him out and wish you much, much, much success in your future, Scott. And thank you for being here once again.
Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate it.